In the quiet unfolding of history, long before grand institutions carried the message forward, there were ordinary men walking dusty roads beside a teacher whose words carried unusual authority. Among them was a fisherman, impulsive, passionate, unmistakably human, a man whose life would stretch far beyond the waters he once knew. This was Peter the Apostle, a disciple whose journey reveals not perfection, but transformation in motion. The world Peter inhabited was restless with expectation. Power belonged to empires, certainty to rulers, and survival to those who kept their heads down. Yet in quiet gatherings and along forgotten paths, a different message was taking root, one centered not on dominance, but renewal of the heart. When Peter first encountered Jesus Christ, it marked more than the meeting of two men. It was the beginning of an inner reshaping, identity challenged, purpose awakened, courage tested. What gives Peter's story its lasting resonance is contrast. He could speak with fierce conviction one moment and wrestle with hesitation the next. His loyalty burned bright, yet his humanity never disappeared. Within that tension lives a truth that still feels familiar. Spiritual growth is rarely clean or linear. It unfolds through uncertainty, missteps, realization, and grace. Peter's path shows that faith is not built in ease, but in moments when confidence falters and trust must be chosen anyway. Around him walked other disciples, men shaped by different fears, expectations, and temperaments, each drawn into a narrative larger than their understanding. Together, they witnessed teachings that redefined strength, mercy, and belonging. They stood in moments that stirred awe and confusion alike. Yet the most profound changes often happened quietly, within, where doubt and belief met, and the invitation to follow demanded letting go of the familiar. Peter frequently found himself at the center of these moments, not because he was flawless, but because he stepped forward. Sometimes with boldness, sometimes with imperfect understanding, yet always moving. His life reflects a powerful pattern. Calling does not erase weakness. It works through it. Each failure became instruction. Each question opened space for deeper insight. His journey feels alive because it mirrors the rhythm of real growth, messy, honest, transformative. As we look more closely at Peter and the circle around him, the story stops feeling distant. Their struggles echo modern ones. The desire to believe fully, the fear of getting it wrong, the hope that change is possible. In their humanity, there is recognition. In their calling, there is invitation. The narrative becomes less about history alone and more about what happens when ordinary people encounter a purpose that stretches them beyond their limits. And so this journey begins not as a distant retelling, but as an exploration, a step into the lives of those early followers whose questions, courage, and imperfections shaped a message that continues to resonate. Through Peter's path, we enter a reflection on discipleship itself, how transformation unfolds, how character is refined, and how lives that seemed small in their moment can carry meaning across centuries. Walking beside Jesus was not a sudden transformation for Peter. It didn't happen in a single moment of clarity, like a switch being flipped. Instead, it unfolded slowly, step by step, in the rhythm of real life. Each day brought something that stretched him, a teaching he didn't fully grasp, a moment that challenged his instincts, a truth that felt bigger than what he was used to carrying. You can almost picture him there, listening closely, wanting to understand, wanting to respond the right way, and sometimes speaking too quickly, driven by emotion before reflection had time to settle. Yet that was part of the journey. Peter wasn't walking a polished path of certainty. He was learning what it meant to grow while still being deeply human. There were moments when he saw compassion expressed in ways that overturned expectation. Situations where anger would have felt justified, yet mercy stepped in instead. And standing there, watching, absorbing, Peter wasn't just witnessing events, he was being reshaped by them. His understanding of strength, forgiveness, and courage was quietly expanding with every encounter. Not every moment was dramatic. Much of that life was lived in the ordinary. Long walks, conversations, silence filled with reflection. And it was in those quieter stretches that the teaching settled deeper. Growth didn't only happen in miracles or public moments. It happened in the steady process of learning to see differently, to pause instead of react, to trust instead of retreat. Sometimes Peter moved forward with bold confidence. Other times hesitation caught up with him, but what defined his journey wasn't flawless execution. It was his willingness to remain present in the process. Each misunderstanding became insight. Each emotional reaction revealed something new to refine. He was being shaped not away from his humanity, but through it. And as the days unfolded, a pattern emerged, a life slowly aligning with something greater. Decisions carried more weight. Words mattered differently. The space between impulse and action began to fill with awareness. This wasn't perfection forming. It was transformation taking root in real time. To follow in that environment meant constantly facing the tension between old habits and new understanding. It meant recognizing fear without letting it decide the next step. It meant allowing humility to open doors pride would have closed. And in those small, repeated choices, Peter's character was being carved with quiet persistence. Listening to this story feels less like observing a distant figure and more like walking alongside a man discovering what it means to change. Not all at once, but moment by moment. His journey unfolds with a familiar rhythm, uncertainty giving way to insight, resistance softening into trust, instinct gradually guided by deeper awareness. And as that rhythm continues, the story doesn't rush toward resolution. It lingers in the movement itself, in the learning, the tension, the becoming, inviting you to stay with the process, to keep walking the road where understanding grows, step by step. There were moments when Peter found himself facing situations that exposed his limits in ways he couldn't ignore. One day, standing amid a restless crowd, pressed in by fear and expectation, he watched tension rise. People looking for answers, certainty, direction. His instinct was to react quickly, to fill the silence with confidence. But beside him, Jesus responded with calm clarity, showing that strength didn't always rush forward. Sometimes it waited, observed, and spoke with intention. In that contrast, Peter was learning restraint, discovering that leadership wasn't noise, but presence. Another time, uncertainty settled in like a storm gathering on the horizon. Circumstances shifted faster than understanding could keep up. Peter felt the pull of doubt, the kind that whispers that things are slipping out of control. Yet walking near Jesus meant witnessing composure in the face of chaos. Instead of feeding fear, Jesus anchored the moment with trust. And Peter, standing in that atmosphere, was forced to confront his own reactions. He began to see that fear didn't vanish by pretending it wasn't there. It quieted when met with steady faith. There were also deeply personal challenges, moments when Peter's emotions outran his wisdom. He spoke boldly, sometimes promising more than he could sustain. When reality tested those declarations, the gap between intention and action became painfully clear. Yet Jesus didn't discard him in those moments. Correction came with purpose, not rejection. Each misstep became instruction, showing Peter that growth wasn't about avoiding failure. It was about allowing truth to refine character. And then there were situations that revealed compassion in action, encounters where social boundaries dissolved and mercy took precedence over status or judgment. Peter had grown up in a world defined by lines: who belonged, who didn't, what was acceptable, what wasn't. Watching Jesus cross those invisible barriers forced Peter to re-examine assumptions he didn't even realize he carried. His worldview stretched, sometimes uncomfortably, as he learned that spiritual maturity demanded more than loyalty. It required transformation of perception. Not every lesson arrived through dramatic confrontation. Some unfolded in quiet conversations, questions asked not to test knowledge, but to reveal the heart. Jesus would speak in ways that lingered, inviting reflection long after the words were spoken. Peter carried those moments with him, turning them over internally, wrestling with meanings that didn't settle immediately. That inner dialogue was part of the shaping, learning to sit with truth until it reshaped how he saw himself and others. Through all of it, Peter was navigating the tension between who he had been and who he was becoming. Old instincts didn't disappear overnight. Doubt resurfaced, confidence wavered. Yet each situation, every correction, every demonstration of patience, every act of unexpected mercy added another layer to his understanding. He wasn't being molded into someone unrecognizable. He was being refined into a stronger version of himself, grounded not in impulse, but in awareness. And as these moments accumulated, a pattern began to take shape. A life learning how to respond instead of react, to trust instead of grasp for control, to grow through confrontation rather than shrink from it. The road ahead still held tension, questions, and trials Peter couldn't yet foresee. But the process was already in motion, unfolding one lived moment at a time. The story lingers there, in that movement, where lessons are still forming, where understanding is still catching up with experience, and where each new situation promises another chance to see what transformation really looks like when lived day by day. And when Peter's story is allowed to settle for a moment, something unexpected happens. It stops feeling distant. The dust of those old roads fades, and what remains is the pattern. A human being learning, stumbling, being corrected, growing in real time. And that pattern doesn't belong to the past, because the same invitation that shaped his life was never meant to expire with history. Peter walked beside Jesus Christ in the most literal sense, hearing the tone of his voice, watching his reactions, learning through presence. But what transformed him wasn't proximity alone. It was willingness, the decision to stay, to listen, to be corrected, to try again after misunderstanding. And that same posture is still available now. Think about the tensions Peter faced, reacting too fast, speaking from emotion, wanting certainty, struggling with fear, wrestling with doubt. None of that belongs to another century. Those same currents run through everyday life now. The pressure to respond before thinking, the fear of getting it wrong, the quiet desire to become someone steadier, wiser, more grounded than yesterday. And this is where the story stops being observation and becomes invitation. Because walking with Jesus today doesn't mean standing on ancient shores. It means allowing his teachings to interrupt your instincts, letting his perspective challenge reactions that feel automatic, choosing to pause when impulse says rush, choosing mercy when pride wants the final word, choosing trust when fear argues loudly. Peter didn't transform because he was extraordinary. He transformed because he stayed engaged in the process, allowing each moment to teach him something about who he was becoming. And that same process unfolds now whenever someone chooses to learn instead of defend, to listen instead of assume, to grow instead of retreat. Imagine approaching your own moments of tension the way Peter was learning to, not as proof of failure, but as invitations to alignment. A difficult conversation becomes a chance to practice patience. A moment of uncertainty becomes an opportunity to trust deeper. a mistake becomes instruction instead of condemnation. That's what walking with Jesus looks like in the present, not escaping life, but stepping into it with a different awareness, seeing reactions before they control you, letting compassion reshape how you respond, allowing humility to open space where pride once stood guard. And just like Peter, the transformation doesn't arrive all at once. It unfolds in repetitions, small choices, daily tensions, quiet reflections, where character is refined gradually. You begin to notice the space between impulse and action widening. Decisions feel more intentional. Responses carry more clarity. Growth becomes visible not in grand gestures, but in steady change. The same presence that shaped a fisherman into a leader is still accessible in the rhythm of everyday life, in reflection, in prayer, in moments where you choose alignment over instinct. The journey Peter walked reveals something deeply hopeful. Transformation is not reserved for the flawless. It belongs to those willing to walk, learn, fall, and rise again. And when that realization settles in, the story stops being about what happened back then and starts revealing what is still possible now. A living path where each step holds the potential to shape who you are becoming if you're willing to keep walking, keep listening, and keep allowing yourself to be formed in the process. Real change, the kind that reshaped Peter the Apostle, didn't arrive as a sudden personality shift. It grew through repetition, small, intentional decisions layered over time. And that same pattern is where transformation begins now, not in dramatic promises, but in daily practice. The first movement is awareness. Peter didn't stop being impulsive overnight. What changed was that he began to notice his reactions. In practical terms, this means learning to pause, even for a breath, before responding. That tiny space interrupts automatic behavior. It creates room to ask a simple question. Is this reaction aligned with what I'm learning? Growth often starts in that fraction of a second where instinct meets intention. Then comes reflection. Walking with Jesus Christ meant Peter regularly revisiting what he had heard and witnessed. Today, that looks like setting aside moments to review your day honestly. Where did impatience take over? Where did fear speak louder than trust? This isn't about self-criticism. It's about observation. Patterns reveal themselves when you look without defense, and once you see them, you gain the power to adjust. Another practical step is replacement, not suppression. Trying to simply stop a habit leaves a vacuum. Peter learned new responses by watching different ones modeled in front of him. The same principle applies now. If irritation is your default, intentionally practice calm speech in low-stakes moments. If pride closes conversations, rehearse listening fully before replying. Repetition turns unfamiliar responses into natural ones. Consistency matters more than intensity. Peter's growth unfolded through countless ordinary moments, conversations, misunderstandings, decisions that seemed small at the time. In daily life, change happens when principles are applied repeatedly in situations that don't feel monumental. Choosing patience in traffic, speaking thoughtfully when rushed, extending kindness when it isn't convenient. These moments accumulate. Character is shaped quietly, long before anyone else notices. There is also the discipline of correction. Peter wasn't shaped by avoiding mistakes, but by allowing them to teach him. Practically, this means resisting the urge to justify every misstep. When something goes wrong, pause long enough to identify what happened internally, the emotion, the assumption, the impulse. That clarity transforms mistakes into instruction rather than discouragement. And throughout this gradual process, intention anchors everything. Each morning becomes an opportunity to set direction. Today I practice awareness. Today I respond instead of react. That mental framing primes behavior. It doesn't eliminate difficulty, but it makes growth deliberate instead of accidental. As these practices settle into rhythm, the change is subtle but real. Reactions soften, decisions feel less driven by impulse. You begin recognizing familiar tensions, the very places where growth is happening, and meeting them with steadier presence. The transformation isn't loud, it's cumulative, unfolding through ordinary repetitions that slowly reshape how you think, speak, and act. And just like Peter's journey, this process doesn't rush toward completion. It lives in the daily returning, noticing, adjusting, practicing, where each small moment becomes another step in a change that is still forming, still refining, still inviting deeper alignment. And as this journey settles in, Peter learning, stumbling, adjusting, growing, something subtle begins to happen. The story that once felt distant starts to loosen its grip on the past. The roads, the crowds, the voices, they fade into the background, and what remains is the pattern itself. A human life in motion, shaped by choices, awareness, and willingness to keep learning. Slowly, the focus shifts, not away from the story, but through it, because the same rhythm that carried those moments long ago is still present in the ordinary flow of today. Right now, life is moving with its own pressures, conversations, expectations, and quiet decisions that seem small in isolation. A reaction you almost didn't notice. A word you chose to say or hold back. A moment where patience felt difficult. Another where fear tried to speak louder than clarity. This is where the narrative breathes into the present. The ancient scenes were never meant to stay framed in history. They act more like a lens, helping you see the texture of your own days more clearly. The tension between impulse and intention isn't confined to stories. It shows up in everyday exchanges, in how you respond when interrupted, in how you handle frustration, and whether you pause long enough to choose your next step instead of being carried by habit. And when you look at life through that lens, the ordinary stops feeling so ordinary. Every day becomes layered with quiet opportunities, not dramatic turning points, but subtle invitations, moments where awareness asks, what kind of response lives here? Moments where growth hides inside decisions so small they're easy to overlook. The same process that once unfolded beside dusty roads now unfolds in conversations, routines, responsibilities, and unexpected interruptions. The distance between story and present experience narrows. You begin to sense that transformation isn't reserved for extraordinary settings. It lives right here, in the rhythm of waking, speaking, choosing, listening, in the unseen adjustments that shape character long before they shape outcomes. The narrative becomes less about observing what happened and more about recognizing what is happening. And as that recognition deepens, the mind gently steps back from the ancient scene altogether, not to abandon it, but to carry its pattern forward. The listener returns fully to the present moment, to the room they're in, the breath they're taking, the life actively unfolding around them. Here, in this space, the story's movement continues, not as history being remembered, but as awareness being lived. The same themes, learning, restraint, courage, reflection, are no longer distant ideas. They're woven into the texture of today, waiting in the next interaction, the next decision, the next quiet pause before action. And in that returning, the journey doesn't end. It simply changes where it's being walked. And now, as the story fades into silence, what remains isn't just what Peter lived. It's what was awakened while listening. Because this journey was never meant to stay inside the narrative. It was meant to travel back with you into to your thoughts, your choices, your next conversations, your next quiet moments where awareness meets action. The same movement you witnessed, learning, adjusting, growing, is already unfolding in your own life, often in ways so subtle they're easy to miss. And maybe that's the real invitation hidden inside this story. To walk forward a little more aware than before, to pause a little more often, to choose with intention instead of impulse. Not perfectly, just honestly. If something here spoke to you, if even one moment made you stop and reflect, don't let that feeling pass unnoticed. Stay connected to this space where stories become mirrors and reflection becomes movement. Subscribe so you don't miss the next step of this journey. Leave a like so this message can reach someone who might need it today. And share this video, because sometimes a simple story arrives at exactly the right moment in someone's life. And before you go, I want you to anchor this experience with a word. In the comments, write, walk. A simple reminder that growth isn't a destination. It's something lived step by step, moment by moment. Thank you for being here and for choosing to keep walking with us. See you in the next reflection.